Have you ever wondered if your choices actually matter? Especially if you believe that God is ultimately in control? It's a huge question, right? But the Bible's answer is actually way more practical and encouraging than you might think.
This question really gets right to the heart of it. If God's will is going to be done anyway, then why should I bother? Are we all just actors reading lines from a pre-written script? Well, as we're about to see, the Bible paints a totally different picture, one where a sovereign God accomplishes his perfect will through our real, meaningful choices. Okay, so before we can get to the how, we've got to lock down the what. And the foundational principle here is that God is not just some passive observer sitting on the sidelines of history. No, he is its active Lord. This declaration from the prophet Isaiah is just incredibly clear. God says, "Listen, I'm not like some powerless idol. My purpose will stand. I will accomplish it." That sense of absolute certainty, well, that's the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about.
So what does that mean? It means history isn't just one random thing happening after another. The Bible sees it as the intentional, deliberate unfolding of God's plan. And according to passages like Romans 8, that plan is all about bringing Him glory and shaping believers to look more and more like His Son, Jesus.
All right, so if God has this definite, unstoppable plan, that brings us right back to our central tension, doesn't it? What's the role of our actions? How in the world does this all work?
And here's what's so fascinating. The Bible just refuses to pick one side over the other. It holds both of these truths in perfect tension. See, God doesn't just ordain the final destination. He also ordains the journey to get there. And a primary part of that journey, the very means He uses, is us, ordinary people making real, actual choices. This verse from Philippians is just the perfect picture of this partnership. Paul tells us, hey, you need to work out your salvation. That's our action, our responsibility. But then he gives the reason. Because it is God who is at work in you, shaping both your desires and your actions. We are genuinely working out what He has already sovereignly worked in. It's incredible.
Okay, so that's the theology, but you know what really makes this stuff click? The stories. So let's take a look at how this plays out in some really powerful examples from the Bible.
Let's start with Joseph. From a human point of view, his life is a complete and total disaster. He gets betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and then thrown in prison for a crime he didn't even commit. His brother's intention is crystal clear, and it is pure evil.
And yet, years later, Joseph looks back at those exact same horrible events and says this. Did you catch that? There are two intentions operating at the exact same time. His brothers are fully responsible for their evil choice, but behind their actions, God had a completely different and totally good purpose: to save lives. It just brilliantly shows how God can weave even our sinful human choices into His sovereign plan.
Now, let's switch gears and look at the story of Ruth. This isn't a story of some big political drama or a massive battle. It's a story of quiet, everyday faithfulness. Ruth, who isn't even an Israelite, makes a simple choice out of love and loyalty to her mother-in-law, Naomi. It's a personal, heartfelt decision.
But look at the staggering, world-changing result of that one decision. This seemingly small act of loyalty places her directly in the family line of Israel's greatest king, David, and ultimately in the genealogy of the Messiah, Jesus Christ himself. Her ordinary choice was woven into God's extraordinary story of redemption.
And just one more quick example, the early church. In Acts chapter 4, they're being threatened for their faith, and what do? They pray. And they start by acknowledging God's total control, even over the brutal crucifixion of Jesus. Now you'd think that might make them passive, right? Just sit back and say, well, God's got it. But it does the exact opposite. It fuels them to pray for boldness to act, and then they go out and speak with incredible power. For them, understanding God's sovereignty was the foundation for courageous human action.
So this is all fascinating theology, but what does it actually mean for you today in your life? This is the so what part. This is where it gets really practical.
It really boils down to three incredible implications that flow from this truth. First, your obedience matters. It's meaningful. Second, your personal limits don't limit God's plan. And third, your suffering is never, ever wasted. Let's just break those down for a second.
First up, your obedience is meaningful. The book of Ephesians says that God has already prepared good works specifically for you to walk in. So think about that. This means when you choose to forgive someone, or share your faith, or show mercy to a person in need, you're not just doing some random good deed.
You are literally stepping into a moment that God designed for you from the beginning. Second, and this is huge, your limits do not limit God. You might feel weak or unqualified or completely overlooked. Hey, welcome to the club. So did Moses, Jeremiah, and pretty much all of the apostles. But the Apostle Paul explains that God intentionally uses jars of clay, that's us, to show that the incredible power at work belongs to God, not to us. Your weakness isn't a liability. It's the very stage where His strength is put on full display. And third, your suffering is not wasted. Now, this famous verse isn't promising that all things are good. They're not. We live in a broken world. But it does promise that God is able to weave all things, the good, the bad, and the truly painful, together for an ultimate good purpose for those who love Him. Just like with Joseph, God can take what was meant for evil and redeem it within His much larger, beautiful plan.
So, as we wrap this up, let's be really clear. The Bible is unambiguous about this. God has a wise, sovereign plan. He is accomplishing His will on this earth, and so often the way He does it is through His people, through their prayers, their obedience, and yes, even through their suffering.
So you see, the question isn't really whether God has a purpose. He does. The real question is for us. Will we trust Him with our lives, with our choices, with our weaknesses and our strengths, and make ourselves available for His use? Will we answer like the prophet Isaiah and say, "Here am I, send me"? Because that is the choice that truly matters.